Hola, Drawing 2. Welcome back to class. As you see today, we have an assistant for class. Her name is Nouva. But what we are going to concentrate on today is how to start our still life using our light source, value, and how to begin a still life. Now, remember last week we talked about what a still life is, and I'm going to refresh your memory today on what that is. A still life is, or a still life drawing in particular, is a drawing that focuses on inanimate objects, meaning that the objects do not have life and they are also still, hence the still life drawing. If you look behind me here, I have a quirky little setup here of a plastic leg, my wooden model, and some paper flowers. I decided to go on the simpler side of things. Remember that you can use whatever objects you have at home or in your space. They don't have to be something extraordinary, but something that interests you, whether it's your favorite baseball bat and mitt or your favorite type of fabric, or it just looks interesting because of the way the light is hitting it. Use that, but remember that our still life is going to be using objects that are inanimate around the house, normally household objects. You're also welcome to use flowers, as I'm using in mine, only they're not real. But you can use real flowers if you'd like, or you can also implement fruit. So if you have some apples or bananas or any sort of food laying around that you'd like to draw in your still life, you're more than welcome to do so. Last week we talked about the importance of this drawing having lighting, which was one thing. I mentioned natural lighting, which would be the setting I'm in right now, is natural lighting. We don't have anything else but the window open in the garage. You may also use other light sources such as a lamp, your phone, and or anything else that you want to use. Consider dramatic lighting. And here you're not going to get too much dramatic lighting out of my setup here, unless you, of course, set a dramatic light underneath here. And I may do so here once I start my drawing, so I can kind of show you the values, the darks, and the lights, and how to apply those. Also, remember that last week I did encourage you to use your phone or any camera device that you may have to take a picture of your still life. I know that in my household things are crazy and things get moved around all the time everywhere. So, to make it easier on yourselves, make sure to find a great angle or perspective of your still life and take several pictures and go from there. I today will be showing you drawing straight from observation, which means I will be looking at my setup here as I draw. Now, as you can also see, I have included my gigantic drawing sketch pad here to start off our class. I will be using a charcoal pencil to show you how to draw things like the form, which would be the shapes of our mannequin and our leg here, as well as how to add the value in there, those darks and lights. But I do encourage you to use a regular pencil if you have that handy. It is easier to erase. I will start off dark so you can see my drawing a lot better. However, you do want to start off on the light side of things to, again, be able to erase things a lot easier. So here's my notepad here. I'll go ahead and get up and show you guys where my setup is. As you can tell, again, I'll bring you a little closer here to my still life. Still life here is a little funky. I've used fabric. I've used a little mannequin, flowers, and a plastic leg I just have so happily laying around the house. And I have my notepad as well. Remember how I mentioned that lighting is important to consider when it comes to this assignment. So you have those nice darks and lights. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the light on my phone. and place it somewhere where I think it looks kind of cool. Maybe some backlighting here. There you go. It kind of looks like there's a halo around there. Not quite digging that image right there, but maybe right there. Although you can't see the mannequin very well, for me, I have some very dramatic shadows even being cast, as you see on the wall over here, where there's just a gigantic human arm hanging out. So with that being said, I'm going to start off with my charcoal pencil here. Remember that we are starting off on the light end, and I'm going to start drawing out the simple shapes and forms of my setup here before I go into adding the values. So instead of focusing on the little things, I'm going to focus on creating my shapes here. So I'm starting off with a mannequin head, and I'm going to continue and try to draw this kind of fast for you so you are not droning on about what's going on. And there's the start of a drawing there. I'll go ahead and try to focus this as much as I can onto my little mannequin here. I won't finish the entire drawing. Remember, I am more so wanting to show you how to start your still life so you're not struggling as bad. And if you have any questions, remember that you can always shoot me an email. I'm here to help you out, as long as my dog doesn't break anything. Now, if you're into things such as trucks or cars, you may draw a focused part of your truck, meaning you don't draw the whole thing, you draw a little portion of it to kind of give that sense of still life. And I know we don't have a lot of time at home since we spend it doing a lot of things. But here is kind of a start to my mannequin here. I'm going to go ahead and draw some of the leg as well. That leg kind of goes straight up. There's a little portion here. It's a weird looking cup for sure. And it's wearing a heel. So I'm going to focus on the upper portion of this, with the moment being I have a carnation here, drawing the form, which means I'm drawing the general shape of this guy as I'm going along. I have a sunflower here that kind of cuts in here. I apologize, guys. I talk a lot through my drawing just to kind of get my thought process of where I'm going with things as I draw them along here. And as you draw, consider the space around your still life. Are you going to make just a plain wall? Are you going to include fabric? What kind of lighting, again, are you going to include there? And how much of this are you going to draw? Now, let's see. This cup also has, this flower overlaps in here quite a bit. And then there's some fabric here. There's a big explosion of a flower here. Now, again, I'm not drawing the whole thing. I'm just drawing a good portion of it. So once you have your drawing done, so here is a close-up. Sorry for the lack of technology here, or my use, but there is a somewhat of a close-up drawing portion of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding some of my values. Where I like to start is I like to go from light to dark. Again, you can always add on top of shadows and darken them up, but once you get too dark, you can't erase, so it gets much harder in that sense. Um, with that being said, I'm going to go into my little mannequin here, and I'm going to start kind of adding the shadow in here. And this is not quite my darkest dark, but I want to make sure that I'm going in and shading this. I'm going to use my fingers to smudge. I don't know if some of you use your fingers to smudge on your drawings, but it helps kind of get some of those medium gradients, especially with charcoal pencils. They're not very good with those in between mediums. They just kind of go from really dark to even darker. I'm going to shade the top here where the shadow's hitting it the most. And I'm just going to concentrate on areas of darkness and lightness as I go through here. Now, my mannequin seems to have the most dramatic lighting as I look at it and observe. There are a lot more really dark shadows and a lot of lights compared to my leg, because my leg is in the background. So here I'm not going to add as much. And you can start seeing the form come through as you start adding that shading. Again, you start from a lighter standpoint and get darker as you gradually go along. You can also do this with your pencils. If you haven't tried this before, you can smudge some of that lead around with your finger or a paper towel to get those nice gradients. This is pretty light in here, and then this itself is pretty dark. A little ball point on his neck. He's also got, this is very light right here. This is all in shadow. So I'm going to put this in shadow here. His little forearm, as I'm looking back here, is in shadow. I know it's kind of hard to see from this point of view. And then he's got part of his arm that's really in this dark shadow. And the rest of it is in light. And as you look, his little body form is starting to appear on here. His little arm is up here. His head is right here. Kind of disappears in that background. But as I'm looking here, I see that there's a really dark shadow here to kind of make his head pop out. And again, I'm looking at those values as I'm filling in along the way. The leg here has some textures where the fishnets, right? Whoever has a plastic leg with fishnets on it laying around, me, of course. But we have these fishnets here going on about creating this kind of weird texture here. I have another arm here. Don't worry, I'm keeping my dog hostage. She's trying to run. Aren't you nervous? So the next thing from here is I'm going to keep looking at my lights and my darknesses to see where this drawing goes. I'm also going to look at the background here. There's a kind of a shelf going on in the back that splits here. And we have everything kind of in light shadow as well in here. So I'm going to go in and start shading this in a light shadowy notion. so you know where I am with this. But I'm also considering the space around my object. So it's not just floating in space. It's in a room. It's sitting somewhere other than, a freezer and a shelf here. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of quickly fill this in. Again, you can use a smudge technique here. Use what you can with materials. I know it's hard to come by right now with everything going on. You may not have everything that is required in an art classroom, and that is okay. Just try your best. I always ask that you try your best and do the best that you can with what you have. So here's my wall in the background. The wall makes my flowers pop out a little more here. As you can see, I'm going to fill in a little more. With that weird shadow in the back because my mannequin is casting this really big, weird shadow where the arm, if you look over here, is just dangling down, kind of making this big, monstrous looking thing. Let's see. From here, there's shadow down here. There's kind of a leg and a bolt and the side of the figure and this bolt. Again, I'm looking at the shadow that's being cast on the shelf. I'm looking at the surroundings. I'm looking at what's going on here. And we're going to have a huge arm just kind of posted. This is going to look like a horse hoof, but you know what? That's okay. Even my drawings don't come out great the first time around. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries, but there's my shadow arm. I'm going to go ahead and color it in since it's in shadow along with the bottom portion of my wall. Again, I'm keeping my eyes on my still life, seeing how that translates into everything. This is going to be a kind of charcoalish, darkish shadow here since it is a pretty dramatic shadow being cast in the distance. Ooh, that sound. I'm out of lead, guys. So now here I'm just going to kind of smudge where I need to, get those middle gradients. That's where my shadow is in my wall, making this guy look a lot creepier than what he needs to be, but that's okay. I like to exaggerate things on my drawings. And then I'm going to continue to look at my drawing here as I sharpen my pencil and see where else I need to add some darks and some other lighter aspects here. So in this case, this line on the wall is a lot darker than my shadows. So I'm going to make that just a little darker so it translates onto the paper. There you go. And then we'll continue on with our still life here. I personally just like to jump around my drawings. I don't necessarily ever stay in one place the entire time. As you can see, my mind bounces from the mannequin here on my paper over to the shadow on the wall, which is right there on the paper, over to the leg. So you don't necessarily have to stick to one object, finish that, and then move over to the next thing. It's a lot easier as an artist as someone who is drawing still life to jump around and focus on different aspects of your drawing. Otherwise, it becomes a little monotone and a little boring, and then that is where frustration starts to grow. As I pointed out, we are using value And we are creating our still lifes by observing and looking at our still life. Again, if you live in a household that's kind of hectic like mine, especially when everyone is awake and alive, then you most definitely want to take a picture with a phone if you can, or with camera, just to keep your images in that still frame. Otherwise, if you have the capability of keeping your still life up and nobody messing with it or it getting moved on you, then by all means, you can do your drawing in that way too. Not a big deal. Work with whatever works best for you. And whatever makes you comfortable. You can use whatever materials you'd like. You can use pencils, markers, whatever's available to you, but you must show value like I have been here in this drawing. I'll bring you up to a closer look here, where you have your dark darks, your lights, as in your whites, and your grays that are in between. So make sure you're also utilizing that. As far as class goes, this drawing is due at the end of the week, so make sure you get that done. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email me and I will reach out to you as soon as I can. Remember, I am here for you until the end of the year, so please, please stay safe. I was hoping that I'd see you at the end of the year, but this is the best that we can do. So I just want to let you know I miss you guys. I miss being in the art classroom and having those cheesy dad jokes every day with Lambo. And just being in the art room with you guys and laughing it up and watching you guys create. It's something that I miss, but hopefully we can get back to normalcy in the near future. I do wish the very best for you guys and that you are all staying safe and healthy and are comfortable. So please take care and reach out if you need anything from me, and I'll do the best that I can. See you guys. Have a great day. Hear from you soon. Bye.